Whatever happened to those cigar smoking record company bosses? No, I'm not in the workshop this week. I'm actually in a hotel in deepest, darkest Africa. It's currently bordering on 28 degrees out there, just to make you all jealous, which is very unusual because normally I'm sitting there saying my toes are cold in the workshop. But I'm recording this from here this week purely because I'm here. And in short, the answer to the question is they've probably all died. But I should say before we start on any of this stuff that I am not selling music, I'm not promoting music, I'm not publishing music, and therefore I really have no axe to grind with anybody regarding the contents of this video. I just think it's a very interesting subject. Back in the day, the record companies were run by cigar smoking men who looked at what an artist produced, scratched their head, and took punts on publishing that music into the market. I have to say, without these individuals, many of the acts that are now in their sort of later life careers probably would never have had careers, because their music would never been published, because people wouldn't have taken a punt on some of the stuff they published, quite frankly. But they did. They took punts on the stuff they published, and that music got into mainstream and has in many cases become very, very cult and popular. A few weeks ago I mentioned the fact that Genesis said farewell. They had 55 years in the music industry, writing, publishing and playing. Now if you go back and look at their early stuff, you actually have to ask yourself, would that have ever been published if the current record company bosses, A&R people were in position and it wasn't the cigar smoking record executives as it was back then? The answer is probably not, and we wouldn't have been saying farewell to 55 years of Genesis. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. The record company is a very different beast to what it was when I grew up in my teens. Back then, mainstream was actually a very diverse set of artists and songs. What I see now is a very fragmented music scene with niche performers in the fragments, but very little diversity. What do I mean by diversity? I mean people doing things differently. In those fragmented workspaces, or fragmented music spaces should I say, those artists are doing the same thing as the other artists in this space. There's no diversity. While I don't regard Tom Jones as a pop artist, I'm going to use Tom Jones as an example here. Tom Jones has been around since the year dot. He's performed on stage in New Elvis. He also is a judge on a series called The Voice in the UK. I think it's franchised around the world. Anyway, another judge on this same show is a chap by the name of will.i.am. At some point, Tom gets up and sings. Okay, he stands on stage, one guy, singing a song, and you are completely captivated by this bloke stand on stage. The audience is drawn in. This guy has gravitas. will.i.am, on the other hand, gets on stage with a bunch of dancers, trousers around his ankles, very, very much MC Hammer, and he doesn't draw the audience in. They just see a quirky man bouncing around singing a song. Will does not have the same gravitas as Tom Jones. Don't get me wrong, I think will.i.am is a very, very creative writing artist and performer. He just doesn't have the gravitas. And gravitas is one of those things that record companies really should be looking for, because gravitas will give longevity. And longevity obviously means more revenue and profit for the record company. But that's not what the record companies want at the moment. They want people they can bring in make some money off and let go. Many artists who signed record deals would probably now walk away from those record deals, even though there were large sums of money involved. Those record deals were signed when they were young and naive and were eager to get fame, not realising what they were signing themselves up for. You do not get a £1 million record deal. In fact, what you get is a £1 million allowance to record a record deal. Now that allowance has to pay for everything. So out of that allowance you get a wage. You don't get £1 million, you get a wage. And they may pay you £5,000 a month for argument's sake. And that's to record and write and record the album that they want you to make, or the singles they want you to make. You also have to pay for all the recording time, the engineers, the musicians, and any other facility of the record company that you may use to record and promote your music. Marketing being a very important one that costs a lot of money. Many people don't realise this when they go in. They think they're getting £1 million, and they are severely mistaken when they are. Effectively, that £1 million is loaned to you, and out of the profits that you may make, you repay the £1 million. And once you get beyond the £1 million, then you start making some money for yourself. But that's a very hard thing to do. Matt Cardle won the X Factor, and the tagline for winning the X Factor is you get a £1 million recording deal. Well, as I just said, it's not a £1 million recording deal, it's a £1 million allowance. He did his 1 year, which is what he was contractually bound to do. He recorded an album with the music company that backs the X Factor, and then he and the music company parted ways. Why? Quite simply, Matt felt that the music company wanted to record music that he wasn't comfortable with. It wasn't the music he wanted to record, it wasn't the music he wanted to write. And therefore what he did was he walked away from the record deal. He's now busily out there recording and writing the music he wants to write, and he is self-funding himself in terms of recording material to be released. In summary, what I'm trying to say is those cigar wielding bosses don't exist anymore. They're not going to take a punt on you. If your music doesn't fit the jelly mould of what the record companies want, you're not going to get signed. But don't despair. And this is the message of this particular week's rant. Don't despair. The diversity of mediums now available to you, the artist, is so much more that the record companies are actually a bit wary. You have things like this medium, YouTube. You have TikTok. You have Instagram. You have Facebook, although it's not really a movie recording media type outlet, but it also gets your message to your audience. It allows you to build a following on those platforms that then you can release music to. You've got Spotify, and you've got a couple of other platforms which allow you to self-publish. It will cost you some money, but you can self-publish yourself onto those platforms. You don't have to be a mega rich music company to get your music on there. Yes, it's harder, but you don't have to do it. I mean, you've seen classic artists like KT Tunstall, for argument's sake. She was part of the YouTube revolution. She got her music across to the masses through the medium of YouTube, and then she did her record deal on her terms. Other artists out there are doing very, very similar things, publishing their music via the video medium that the internet makes possible. So you can grow your audience, you can grow your listener base, and you can get your music heard. It's just not as easy if you don't have a recording deal. But then, having said that, the money's all yours. And on that note, I'm going to say, live long and prosper. And from Morocco, bye-bye.